You can't expect a 50-year-old piece of engineering to perform as well as it did the day it left the factory, when it comprises of perishable components, and there's several of them on each unit, whether we're talking about rubber components or just really hardened grease and oil. I defy anyone to come up with an example of precision engineering which would work the same as it did the day it left the factory after 50 years. And so all of Audio Grail's Garrard 301s are completely rebuilt, and here's a few examples of early grey Hammertone units that can be picked up from ex-radio stations in this case, or potentially even on eBay. I mean, there's pitting, there's flaking, you can see the paint actually coming off this. And after 50 or 60 years in this case, it's no surprise that this unit is not going to sound as wonderful as it possibly could. Moving along, you'll be able to note that this is actually a BBC Garrard 301. Again, this is all completely original. This particular unit was used by the BBC. It was bought at the Chiswick stores many years ago, and this is a project for us to restore. Fantastic machine, and we'll have a look at the underside of this later on just to see just quite how different it is from the standard Garrard 301s. Okay, moving further along now, you can see a Hammertone version Audio Grail 301, and this has been completely restored. You'll notice that the plates show no pitting. This is truly in wonderful condition. The screw holes show barely any mounting or unmounting wear. And everything on this unit has been completely stripped and rebuilt. We have a new idler wheel. We have idler wheel bushings. The spindle and housing have been completely stripped and rebuilt. All of the associated linkages have been replated in yellowed zinc to a very high standard. And the reason for that is that it will preserve the unit for another 50 years, but also stripping off the cadmium, which is actually poisonous. So there's a great, hopefully this can be displayed, that there is quite a difference between the Audio Grail restored unit and the first unit that we looked at, which is, as you would expect, weathered, worn and tired. In order for us to actually replate and finish the units, we completely strip them, and that can be exemplified here. We use an acid to strip the chassis and the platters. The reason for that is that these chassis, the early ones, the grey versions like this, the castings were so poor, if you were to shot blast it as an example, there's a chance that you could actually blow through the chassis. So these are acid stripped, and this is going to be prepared and ready for painting. And you can see here an original platter. This is the original finish, which of course is so highly prized by many collectors. Okay, just to re-emphasise some of the differences between an original condition or used condition 50 or 60 year old Garrard 301 and the restored versions, we'll start with this one. This was a radio station unit. You can see that the springs are rather stretched, the rubbers are dry, the plating itself is oxidised, and that causes rub, specifically in the riveted areas, hinders function. Certainly within the central spider here, which can actually transfer vibration from the motor through the linkage into the chassis. All of these components need to be stripped. Certainly here we have a grease bearing. This particular area is critical, and after 50 or 60 years the grease within this housing will be so stiff and varnished. The motor, of course, the heart of the unit, after 50 or 60 years will have varnished on the inside. Basically, we would remove these rivets on the top and the bottom and completely cleanse the inside bearing and replace it with a brand new oil feed reservoir. The bearing housing will be completely stripped and ultrasonically cleaned. The idler housing grommets, you'll see, are dry and deteriorating, and this again transfers vibration through the entire unit. For the next unit, you'll notice this is considerably different. This is because this is a Westrex adapted Garrard 301 which was used at the BBC. There's a number of quite interesting adaptations here. This would actually raise and lower the entire spindle itself so that a third platter could be used. This was for start-stop function. You have a number of other appendages on here, optical light, and the way that they've actually brought the electronics to the side here. This particular unit will be completely restored by us. Okay, and finally moving along now to a completely restored Audio Grail Garrard 301. This is again completely original finish on the paintwork. All of the linkages have been completely replated, showing a lovely iridescence here. The springs, central linkage have been replaced, all of the motor springs replaced. We have new isolation rubbers. The housing has been ultrasonically cleaned. The isolation grommets for the idler housing are replaced, they're now supple. We have a brand new spark suppressor. Many hours have been taken on this particular unit to bring it to, we hope, as close a standard as the day it left the factory. It really is a wonderful example. And we do many restorations. We do try and keep faithful to the original Garrards, but we do special jobs for our private clients, and to celebrate our centenary we also produced 5 pearl Garrard 301s which were particularly special to us, and in the future we will also be offering for some of the collectors an alternative bearing and some rather unique modifications for the motor. So hopefully between the two now you can see the difference between a restored unit, this motor's been completely rebuilt, and a unit that you may find in an old radio station or on eBay as an example.